In recent months, former President Donald Trump has been at the center of a series of legal battles, all stemming from various criminal investigations, charges, and trials. One of the most high-profile cases currently underway is his ongoing trial in New York, where he faces 34 felony counts related to his alleged financial crimes, including tax fraud and business record manipulation. However, Trump's legal team has taken a bold step by filing a staggering 80-page motion aimed at dismissing the charges, an attempt to vacate the jury conviction, on the grounds that his election as president should somehow erase the criminal behavior that occurred before he took office. This move is yet another example of Trump's strategy to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. It represents more of the same, a desperate attempt to stall the legal process, distract from the facts, and exploit every possible legal loophole. But does this 80-page filing have any merit, or is it simply a cynical attempt to waste the court's time, prolong his case, and avoid accountability? In this video, we'll break down the key elements of Trump's filing, examine why it's nothing more than a recycled set of failed arguments, and discuss what this means for the future of his legal battles. The basics of the 80-page motion. What's Trump's legal team arguing? Donald Trump's legal team recently filed an 80-page motion that seeks to dismiss or vacate the felony conviction against him in the state of New York. The motion, which is filled with numerous legal and procedural claims, hinges on the idea that Trump's election as President of the United States should somehow absolve him of criminal accountability related to his financial dealings prior to taking office. The core argument put forth by Trump's lawyers is rooted in claims of executive privilege, separation of powers, and political victimization. Their argument essentially suggests that Trump, as a sitting president or even as a president-elect, has special legal protections that render the charges against him invalid. In essence, they assert that the political context surrounding Trump's election provides him immunity from prosecution, regardless of the alleged criminal activity he engaged in before his election. However, as one legal expert noted, this line of reasoning is not only misguided but highly improbable to succeed. The idea that the election of a president could retroactively erase crimes that occurred years earlier is simply a non-starter. The crimes Trump is accused of, such as election interference, business fraud, and tax evasion, are not excused because he won the presidency. The courts have consistently ruled that no one is above the law, not even a sitting president. Warmed-over arguments. Why this motion is just a repeat of previous failures. When reviewing the substance of Trump's motion, it becomes clear that his legal team is merely recycling arguments that have already been rejected by the courts in previous motions and appeals. The 80-page filing is a thinly veiled attempt to revisit old claims, including accusations of political bias, supposed misconduct by the prosecutors, and supposed conflicts of interest involving the judges and investigators involved in his case. For example, one section of the motion targets Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, claiming that Cohen's testimony should be disregarded because he supposedly has an axe to grind with Trump. This argument is based on a selective reading of Cohen's past actions and statements, attempting to paint him as an unreliable witness. However, the jury in the original trial had ample opportunity to evaluate Cohen's credibility. They heard his testimony and cross-examined him thoroughly, ultimately deciding that his statements were credible and worthy of consideration. The jury's decision should stand, and the argument that Cohen is biased is nothing more than a tired attempt to discredit an unfavorable witness. Similarly, Trump's team spends a significant portion of the motion attacking the motivations of New York Attorney General Letitia James and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. They claim that Bragg, in particular, has a personal vendetta against Trump, citing his campaign promises to hold the former president accountable for alleged criminal actions. However, these claims are fundamentally flawed. Bragg was tasked with overseeing the Trump Organization's finances after an extensive investigation was already underway, not because of personal bias, but because of the evidence uncovered by his predecessor. It's also worth noting that Bragg successfully secured a felony conviction against the Trump Organization for tax fraud, a case that was not tied to any political motivation but rather the clear evidence of illegal financial activity. In a similar vein, Trump's team attacks the legitimacy of the trial by pointing to supposed political leaks and biased media coverage. They argue that the prosecution, the press, and even the judge's family members have a bias against Trump, which has supposedly tainted the entire legal process. These claims are once again baseless and reflect a broader narrative that Trump and his supporters have used throughout his political career, that any legal or political challenge to his actions is the result of a deep state's conspiracy. This rhetoric, however, does not hold up in the courtroom, where the facts of the case are what ultimately matter. The far-fetched allegations, Trump's legal team turns to absurd arguments. Beyond recycling previous legal theories that have failed, Trump's legal team goes to great lengths to introduce completely far-fetched arguments in an attempt to sway the court. One of the most curious sections of the filing is the team's attempt to connect the case to unrelated political controversies, such as the pardon of Hunter Biden by President Joe Biden. According to Trump's legal team, the pardon somehow proves that there is a political double standard in the justice system, and that Trump's case is just another example of political persecution. This argument, which has little to no relevance to the charges Trump faces in New York, appears to be an attempt to distract the court from the actual issues at hand. It also underscores the desperate nature of Trump's legal strategy, which is increasingly reliant on conspiracy theories and irrelevant political narratives rather than substantive legal arguments. While it is true that Hunter Biden has been a political lightning rod, it has absolutely nothing to do with Trump's alleged criminal conduct in New York, and using it as a basis for legal argument is an exercise in deflection. Equally bizarre is the legal team's focus on a supposed conflict of interest involving the judge in Trump's case. They claim that the judge's daughter, who works for a Democratic political organization, has created an inherent bias against Trump. This argument has been debunked in the past, as the judge's impartiality has been thoroughly scrutinized and upheld. In fact, these attacks on the judge appear to be little more than another attempt to discredit the legal process and set the stage for a potential appeal should Trump be convicted. Trump's strategy: delay, distract, and avoid accountability. Ultimately, the 80-page filing is nothing more than another attempt by Trump to delay the legal process, distract from the serious charges he faces, and avoid accountability for his actions. His legal team is using every trick in the book, no matter how absurd or irrelevant, to try and get the case thrown out before it even reaches a verdict. While this motion may buy Trump some time, it is unlikely to succeed in the long run. Courts have consistently ruled against Trump's legal arguments in the past, and there is no reason to believe that this latest filing will fare any better. The reality is that Trump's legal team is running out of viable strategies, and this motion reflects a last-ditch effort to avoid facing the consequences of his actions. As we've seen time and time again, Trump is adept at playing the system, using his wealth and influence to delay proceedings and create distractions. But the truth is that his legal challenges are mounting, and the clock is ticking. The 80-page filing may seem like a masterclass in wasting the court's time, but it is ultimately a reflection of Trump's inability to escape the consequences of his actions. Donald Trump's recent 80-page legal filing is little more than a desperate attempt to delay, distract, and discredit the legal process that is closing in on him. Filled with recycled arguments, absurd political claims, and baseless attacks on the prosecution, the judge, and the legal system, this filing is a classic example of Trump's ongoing strategy of using legal maneuvers to avoid accountability. While this motion will undoubtedly fail, it is part of a larger pattern in which Trump seeks to divert attention from his criminal conduct and cast doubt on the legitimacy of the legal proceedings against him. However, as the case moves forward, it is clear that the courts will not be swayed by these distractions. Trump's legal team can continue to file motions, make baseless claims, and raise irrelevant arguments, but at the end of the day, justice will prevail. As the legal process continues, Trump will likely face further scrutiny and potential conviction for his actions. His desperate legal circus may temporarily slow down the inevitable, but it cannot stop the wheels of justice from turning. It's only a matter of time before Trump is held accountable for his actions, and when that day comes, it will be a victory not only for the legal system, but for the rule of law itself.